So he says, he goes, I kind of have this idea of taking the triangle that we have here. We have these 3 triangles. And he goes, I like to line up that triangle, that peak right down my line where I'm going. And I like to roll it that way. And I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Interesting use case.
I haven't heard that before.
I'm here with Bill Price from Taylormade. What's your title, Bill?
Senior Director of Product Creation.
That sounds like a pretty big deal. You a big deal there?
No, not really.
Yeah,
I like to get in there
People know
late
you, Bill.
And leave early.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's a really good gig for me.
All right, when you retire, let me know. I'd like to have that job. Let's talk about these Spider putters, and a lot has changed. You've got tour players from Colin Morikawa, Maria Fassi, Dustin Johnson. People might have heard of them using these.
Yeah.
But tell me what's changed over the years with Spider, and even like really why you made it.
Okay, that's a big question there.
All right,
so you know,
we've got lots of time.
If you go back to how Spider was created back then, you know, about 15 years ago, you had blades that were in use, right? So about, you know, on tour, 80% of the players were using blades at that time, and 20% mallets. We came out with a Spider that was very big at the time, very large at the time, and a mallet. So you're going upstream here, so you're dealing with maybe 2% of the putters that were out there. But because of the performance of what Spider brought, the stability, it made it easier. And then we'll get into the stroke a little bit, but it was at first a hard battle. Okay. And so I remember the first time I went to Hawaii, and we got 4 putters in play, and I got back to the office, and you know, first question, well, how many guys are using it? 4. And I was so happy about 4 guys. They're probably the 4 worst putters that were out there on tour, right? But that 4 became 6, and 6 became 12, and within 5 weeks we had a victory.
And do you attribute that as much to the design as just the unique look and the cool look, I guess, relative to all the blades? It was different, and it stood out on TV, and it was very unique because of the size and the shape. So nobody had a putter that big and that shape out there at that time. So within 5 weeks it went on tour, and then the rest was history. That kind of kick-started it. And then we went through a lot of different versions of Spider, and then it kind of came back in with a lot with Jason Day. Yeah. And Jason Day, his first comment was, I'd like to see a different color, right? Something in a putter. And well, what'd you have in mind? It was red. And so this is after we had the white putters. So Jason was really interested in red because he liked the opportunity to look at red, and especially with the green. So it had with the white golf ball. So you had that contrast. Contrast, yeah.
Yeah, so he likes contrast. So, you know, we probably built about, 15 different versions of red. You know, we started with kind of a Ferrari red, and it ended up with this brick red, and so it went through a lot of different versions, but that was crazy how many red putters we sold.
Is that still the same red?
So a little different red. We call that tour red right now, and that was similar. So Sergio was really excited about having red and maintaining our heritage of what red was in the past. So that's still in the line this year.
Very cool.
So you had a lot of different versions of Spider. You had the Spider back then, and then you had Spider Tour. That was very popular. Then we came out with Spider X, and if anybody remembers the copper version. So yes, and then we added True Path in there. So when I put True Path in there, it was a great story about being able to see the line, kind of like we have with the golf balls today. So being able to visualize that line. You know, at that time, Rory was adamant, he just didn't like Spider. He was a blade guy, and the Spider Tour just didn't fit his eye. And so I was constantly always asking, what kind of Spider could I create that would fit your eye? And he wanted something a little more streamlined. He thought that the jet engines that we had out there, the one that Jason Day and that DJ played and won so many tournaments with, he just was too big, it was too boxy. So he wanted something a little more streamlined. So we came out with Spider X, and then the rest was history with that one. So as we turned the page and went into this year, we wanted something. What I was trying to do is design something that had a little bit more forward CG. So you had 2 Spiders, Spider Tour that has a very deep CG, like a 38 millimeters, and then you had Spider X at about 35. And so I was looking for something with a little bit more forward CG so you could release the putter head a little bit more. And that's one of the things I always heard from players. I like to see more of a mid-size shape and something that releases, and that's why we were able to design the GT with a lot more forward CG location.
Yeah, these definitely look, if I was going to say traditional on a mallet, it's looking more like what you're accustomed to seeing without as much of the flare off of the sides from the the weighted screws.
Easier on the eye, I think, and that's what I always heard back. So if we could get more players into Spider, it was more about mid-size shape, more modern, and then again, more forward CG. So we were going after trying to get more of those blade players, because if you took a blade user, and I think you're a blade user yourself.
Yeah, mine's right over there.
So yes, so you like the blade, and so you know what that feels like to rotate that. So all of a sudden the GT is going to rotate a lot different than any other Spider we had in the past.
Yeah.
So it's going to allow that face to close a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can tell things have changed a lot. The tech feels a little more hidden in this one. Can you explain what kind of technology you're really using in the putter itself? Yeah,
so we've got these steel rails that are on the outside, so you got a lot of weight on the outside. So we took a lot of the weight that we used to have that we did through multi-material. Part of what Spider's always been about is multi-materials, and we've really maximized it by putting all the weight on the outside. That's why you have this kind of this cavity in here. So we moved all the weight to the outside to create that stability in a mid-size shape.
No, these look awesome. I mean, I always liked the other Spiders too. I had one of the red ones like Jason Day, and they look great. But I think these look just maybe as weird and dogmatic as cleaner might sound.
Did you say weird?
Just what I'm going to describe these as with the adjective, but cleaner probably is
cleaner. I like the word cleaner.
Way to look at it. There's not as much complexity to the top of it looking down. It looks awesome.
I like that because it was meant to be cleaner, less complexity, and easier to the eye. So again, who am I trying to go after? Is more. I'm trying to get a bigger piece of the pie with more of the blade users coming in that they can rotate it, and they want something a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. So you move the CG forward. The grooves on the face look different. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So we have an insert. We've always been an insert because we have a lot. We have Quintec. We can see the roll. So we're always big believers in roll. You get the ball on that right path, and you get it rolling with topspin. You don't want a lot of backspin, so you want topspin. So this provides the best combination of topspin that we've ever had. So we've got urethane around the outside, and then we've got the metal beams in the middle. And those metal beams are at a 45-degree angle, which creates that topspin.
Okay, helps you get the ball rolling.
Yes. So
faster.
So if not faster, there's no speed advantage.
Yeah, sorry.
Just
gets there, lands on the ground, pops out of the little hole, lands on the ground, gets rolling with topspin.
Exactly.
Quicker once it hits the ground.
There's no speed advantage.
Yeah, right.
You test it, and you won't see speed. What you'll see, and I get this a lot for over all the years, it seems sometimes I get the word hot. It feels hotter.
Okay.
And it's not hotter. We would never see any more speed, but what's happening? Your ball's more efficient.
Yeah, it's just rolling.
So it's roll. So you might see a 6-inch rollout.
Okay.
And that's because you've gone from maybe backspin to topspin.
Good. Okay, that's interesting. So I could see anybody who's good at golf would adapt to that for sure. But if someone comes up short a lot, this might be one of the first putters you grab off the rack.
Well, that's one thing. I can guarantee you 25 to 50 RPMs of topspin.
Right.
No matter where you are.
And it's going to be more.
Yeah, so Dave Stockton was probably the best that we've ever seen come through our facility.
Yeah.
You know, with the amount of topspin that he has, and of course, one of the best putters ever.
Right.
I'd put him in there with, Jason Day. Of course, this guy that just won the Open Championship is pretty good putter as well. So those guys really get the ball. When you watch their ball, they roll different than anybody else's. You see the ball just looks different when it rolls. They've got so much topspin.
Yeah, it's got less of a tilted axis too. It's just rolling truer for sure. I like the different color options you have here. You got the red. What do you call the silver? Silver.
Yep, silver, and then we have
very technical name, and the black one.
And a stealth, kind of a stealth black, and then we've got our tour red.
So I like those with the short line. What made you choose, say, a shorter line on this as opposed to moving all the way back to the trailing edge?
That was more input from players.
Okay.
So there's, you go back, that same thing with hosels. And sight lines are always one that's a personal preference.
Yeah.
So we've always had a lot of long lines in Spider, and so I wanted to try something a little bit shorter because there was always a lot of players that say, I'd like to see a short line. And all the builds that we see and that go out of our facility, a lot of short lines.
Okay, interesting. Is this the one Colin Morikow's using? I don't know if it's very hosel or not, but this is the head style?
Yes, that is the head style. We call that a rollback, so it's a GT rollback. So you can see on the top on how it curves back a little bit, so it's an easy to the eye, easy for alignment. And it actually works fantastic with that golf ball.
I can imagine. That green stripe on there.
If it had a black stripe on there, with that black stripe, it would be real easy to line up.
Really hard not to line that up. How much input do you get from players like Morikawa, or you mentioned a touch from Rory? He wanted a more streamlined blade, not quite as exaggerated with the flare off the side, but what other feedback do you get and listen to and try to accommodate for?
Always a lot of feedback. You got to kind of take it back and say, okay, what's going to work? Because putters there's a lot of different models and a lot of different sight lines, a lot of different hosels.
Yep.
So we'll do fine tuning with shaping with them all the time. I'll like to show them early in advance. But one of the problems, though, I always have is the earlier I show something, they want to play it now.
Too excited. You gotta wait.
Next week, yes.
You gotta wait.
And the answer of no, you can't have it is not on the table. So,
yeah,
so it's more about showing them a wax and what they think, and so they can't putt with it. And so what do you think of the shape? So we get a lot of shaping questions through the players.
Yeah. And then this one, a little different with the tech. You've got the tungsten bar all the way in the back.
In the back, so that just creates a little bit more stability in the backside.
Okay. Have you got a favorite one out of all these? Which one would you use?
Here, actually.
That one? Okay. Yeah. Tell me about that one.
So this is called notchback. So the whole idea here was to really create more of a classic shape. If you look at the shape, it's been around for many, many years.
Right.
So again, how would we do this? A classic shape, mid-size shape in a spider way through multi-materials. So on the outside here, you got these 80-gram tungsten weights on the outside. So this small little package here has as much stability as a Spider Tour or Spider X or a Spider GT. That would never been allowed before. Never been. I couldn't manufacture something like that in this size before without the use of these multi-materials. So especially using tungsten and lightweight materials that we have here, and be able to create this MOI story and stability story in a small package was really pretty good.
That's pretty good. No, I like the way this one looks. I like all these shorter hosels. That's me, but you have a bunch
what about the angle of the hosel?
A little bit. The tiniest bit of offset that you do on here, I think, that's maybe the most I would do. You've got my blade back there. I'm trying not to
you have a little bit, probably anyway. 3/4.
Yeah, that's closer to 3/4 slant neck. But I think that one for good putters, sometimes they just find the neck that they like, and then almost any putter head on there you can kind of adapt to from there. Hey, if money was no object, you could do anything you wanted with these things. You didn't care how they looked, because tour players care, but what if they you didn't have that kind of constraint? What would you try to do, or what would be interesting to dabble with? But
this was interesting.
Yeah.
Taking a classic putter and a classic size that has very low MOI, and actually, a classic shape like this, they have less MOI than a blade putter.
Right.
So, the starting point is can we stay where a Spider is? It's say 5,000, 5,100 MOI. And so if we could get there with this, and that's what we achieved with this putter. Like I said, that was hard to do maybe 10 years ago. But being able to take this classic shape, mid-size shape, and be able to make it at 5,000, I was really excited about that.
Yeah. You were telling me a little story you got to share with everybody here. Jason Day?
Yeah.
Or sorry, it was Tommy Fleetwood.
Tommy Fleetwood,
asking about this golf ball.
Yeah, so I was down, and we get the luxury of being with all the guys once a year. We all get together to show them all the new toys for the upcoming season. So at that time, I'm standing there with Tommy, and we're talking, and we're just chatting, because he's always got great ideas. He's been using the picks, and he really likes picks a lot. And he's like, Billy, he goes, what do you think of this? So you know the whole picks, it kind of rolls like this, right? It goes kind of like a tire. So he says, he goes, I kind of have this idea of taking the triangle that we have here. We have these 3 triangles. And he goes, I like to line up that triangle, that peak right down my line where I'm going. And I like to roll it that way. And I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Interesting use case.
I haven't heard that before. So we put it down, and then we kind of talked about connecting the dots between the 2 triangles below here with the top line there. So it kind of gives them that visual right here. And then he's got this as the visual down the path. So I thought it was a great idea. So,
well, thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Wizard, is that what they call you?
Well, they have a billboard over in Japan. God of Putters.
God of Putters. Bill Price, God of Putters.